But the point is that you want to avoid getting bright light in your eyes from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. Why? That plummets dopamine and melatonin, disrupts sleep, and can lead to issues in next day cortisol and even learning issues. You go outside with the kids, they need it too. Yeah. People say, does this work in animals? Of course it works. It was discovered in animals and then shown in humans.
Yeah.
Andrew Huberman, the sage of rejuvenation, emerges into the spotlight of time with a revelation that could turn back the hands of age itself.
So what I've done for years, it's funny, I actually, maybe at some time I'll put this online. I've taken careful notes. I have a folder right next to me here where I essentially have my nutrition is been very consistent for 10 or 15 years. And I should just say, you know, I'm not particularly lean, nor am I carrying a lot of excess life. If you don't get that morning sunlight for one day, no big deal. But if you don't do it for 2 days or 3 days in a row, what happens is that morning increase in cortisol still happens, but it starts getting pushed out towards the afternoon. Ketogenic diets done properly can be great for people. The problem is if you do it wrong, you can really mess it up. I tried it once and I basically got psoriasis. I thought my scalp was going to fall off. I was like sloughing off all this. And then I stopped and I was taking the liquid ketones. And then all of a sudden I felt better again. But I was told that I just did it wrong. So I think I found a diet that works well for me. Obviously it will be different for different people, but this is what allows me to be consistent about eating quality foods. One thing I'll note before I say this, one very dramatic effect of taking this, what I would say is a pretty low dose of TRT since the new year, is absolutely zero appetite for sugar. Basically, you can have 2 drinks a week and still be okay. Most people are drinking far more than that.
Yes.
And here's what I say, if you're going to drink more than that, then you should do a bunch of other things to support your health, right? Try and get good sleep, get exercise, you know, cardiovascular and weight training exercise. Try and eat mostly non-processed, minimally processed food. Get sun in the morning. All the sort of Huberman Lab podcast staples of health and well-being. We can talk more about these if you want. Salt is great. You need sodium, magnesium, and potassium to function and for your nerve cells to work. I mean, people who overdrink water and don't consume enough electrolyte. Hydration is really important. I know David's really into hydration. He's mentioned that a few times. I mean, hydrating properly is key. And so you definitely want to make sure that you're drinking enough water and getting enough electrolytes. We should have actually talked about that at the beginning because that's going to keep your nervous system functioning well.
With the wisdom of a modern alchemist, he reveals the elixir of life, a potent formula that promises to reverse the relentless march of years.
Over the years, I've tried many different nutritional plans and been very regimented about them and took notes. I'll just give you a kind of a highlight of a few and then why I didn't stick with them and then emphasize what I'm doing now. So when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I did try a kind of a high fat, very low carbohydrate thing. I was like drinking half and half and eating meat and I did grow quite a lot on that. But it was, of course, I was 19 years old. I was also training heavy. I was completely natural, but I was also probably in the peak. I'm guessing my androgen levels were probably taken off. And I am somewhat of a fast responder in terms of when I weight train, I grow quickly. Also, when I stop weight training or I run, I shrink quickly. So, you know, it cuts both ways. So when the sun is low in the sky, you can look at it directly much more easily without pain. But if it's painful, it's okay to blink. Don't damage your eyes on account of trying to get the sunlight. Here's the idea, a little bit of background just to kind of nest this in something. Every cell in your body has a little 24-hour clock. Viewing the sun, in particular morning sunlight, on a consistent basis, I would say 80% or more of the days of your life is what you should strive for. So it could be 100%, could be 80, but try and do this daily. What it does is it aligns all of those clocks in a very precise way. And it does this by activating specific neurons in your eye called the intrinsically photosensitive melanopsin ganglion cells, but forget, that's all geek speak, connects to your brain and informs all the cells of your body what's going on in the outside world and aligns them. So imagine going into a clock store with every clock is an alarm clock and they're on different schedules. That's what happens if you don't view morning sunlight. When you do view morning sunlight for about, I would say 5 minutes to 10 minutes on a clear day, try and face in the direction of the sun. Don't do it through a window. Don't do it with sunglasses on. Fine to wear eyeglasses or contacts, even with as UVB protection. Don't wear a brimmed hat. You know, just look in the general direction of the sun, even if you have to be on your phone, but just kind of get some sunlight in your eyes and blink if you need to, if it's painful. Look away from it a little bit if it's really bright. That morning sunlight coordinates all the cellular and organ systems of your body and does a couple of things. First of all, it boosts a number of chemicals that need to be released early in the day, such as cortisol, which is healthy if it's released early in the day, and the so-called catecholamines, which are dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. What is that? Dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine. What does that do? It gives you increased focus, energy, and alertness through the morning, increased immune system function throughout the day, focus throughout the day, and it sets a timer on some other clocks in the body, including the one that releases melatonin about 16 hours later to make you sleepy and fall asleep easily.
His words echo like a clarion call through the halls of biology, challenging our perceptions of aging and inviting us to embrace the potential of transformation.
And a lot of people, they'll get shaky or jittery and when they're fasting, and they'll think they need sugar. Yeah. And if they just put some salt in some water, they feel fine.
And like the other stuff, potassium, magnesium, whatever the other electrolytes are. But those
three. So I mean, salt. Yeah,
salt
magnesium's good before sleep. Salt. I mean, this is a vast space, and we're kind of talking about the overlap between neurochemicals, hormones, and nutrition. And it's a fascinating space, and it's one that the academic community has gems within the textbooks. It hasn't really made it into the public sphere yet. And I think that's because people get so caught up in the, being, are you vegan or are you carnivore? And there's a vast space in between too that people can explore. Like, I'm not a competitive athlete, so I eat meat and I also eat vegetables and I eat fruits, and it's just about timing them. But I tend to eat carbohydrates when I want to be sleepy. I eat them at night. And everyone said that's the worst thing. You can't do that. You sleep great after eating a big bowl of pasta, I'll tell you. Basically, for the last 10 years, I've fasted anywhere from 12 to 16 hours for every 24-hour cycle. So I knew Sachin when he was formulating intermittent fasting, time-restricted eating, and his book and his science was coming out. I also got to know Ori Hofmeckler, who wrote the book, The Warrior Diet. He's kind of the originator of the 1 meal a day system. Ori was in Israeli Special Forces, really nice guy. He's in his probably early 60s now. He still maintains 5% body fat. He's very fit, very, very nice guy, actually. He doesn't get enough credit for being the kind of modern founder of intermittent fasting, because it's existed for centuries, of course. But the point is that you want to avoid getting bright light in your eyes from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. Why? That plummets dopamine and melatonin, disrupts sleep, and can lead to issues in next day cortisol and even learning issues. This was beautifully shown by Samar Hattar at National Institutes of Mental Health. It's a good friend of mine, but also a fabulous circadian biologist. So morning sunlight on a cloudy day, maybe 10 to 20 minutes. Really overcast day, if it's really overcast, you wake up, it's ugly out. Your goal should be to get outside, be under an overhang, try and get some light in your eyes with no sunglasses. Then during the day, you really want to crank the lights. On a clear day, get outside. And then people say, well, I've got kids. You don't have kids. Have you ever tried to do this? Well, first of all, you don't know my home situation. Second of all, you go outside with the kids. They need it too. Yeah. People say, does this work in animals? Of course it works. It was discovered in animals and then shown in humans, right? Every mammal needs to do this. And dogs and other animals even will orient towards the sun. Ideally, you're seeing some sun in the morning, again in the afternoon before it sets, and then limiting your nocturnal light time.
Within this revelation unfolds a tapestry of possibilities, an invitation for everyone to grasp the science that holds the key to defying the hands of time.
I have one idea that I'm hoping someone will test, which is when you're on a low carbohydrate diet or you're doing intermittent fasting, one thing that's very clear is that your adrenaline and noradrenaline, epinephrine levels are higher. And one of the things that you see is that people are more alert, and when they're more alert, they move more. And that brings us back to NEAT, this non-exercise induced thermogenesis. As you said, you eat a big bowl of pasta and it tends to make you feel kind of sedentary.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas when you just eat meat, you can go, go, go.
Yeah.
I ran into Jordan Peterson not that long ago. And he's really big. He does 3 steaks a day. And not just for his age, he looks very fit. And he feels strong. Now, I don't know what he's doing in the realm of training.
I don't think he lifts weights.
Exactly. So I don't think he has to replenish glycogen the same way many people do. But I think for people who are doing mostly cardiovascular exercise, some resistance training, I think he does some, the carnivore thing may work very well. But I think that also just being a mobile, moving person. And, this thing about NEAT was discovered because they noted that people that were very thin tend to move a lot. It was a it was kind of correlation in both directions. Whereas people who are larger tend to be pretty sedentary and they move slower. So basically, I get up, I hydrate, I drink some caffeine. I do delay my caffeine by about 90 minutes to 2 hours after waking because it does seem to avoid a crash later. Coffee, yerba mate, that kind of thing. But then I do drink Athletic Greens, even though they are a podcast sponsor. I do love Athletic Greens. I've been drinking that stuff for ages, gosh, since 2012. And I do love it. Then my first meal is almost always a low carb meal. It's some steak or ground beef, some Brazil nuts, maybe a vegetable, but I do have more mental clarity when I'm low carbohydrate, provided that my glycogen stores have been repacked from the previous day or so. So I'll typically train late morning. If I train really hard, if it's resistance training, then I'll have, a bowl of rice or a bowl of oatmeal or something. And I like butter, so I'll put a pat of butter in there, and my lipid profiles are just fine. Mm-hmm. I think there's an entire YouTube video sort of analyzing and scrutinizing that I said that I like butter. I don't walk around putting on sticks of butter. Well, again, it's like my first impulse when I saw it was first I laughed, and then I thought, wow, do they really think that I live on that much butter? Small amounts of butter. But then when I realized, I was like, well, this is really sad. Like they don't really have anything else to talk about besides the fact that I eat butter.
The spotlight narrows on Andrew Huberman, a modern Prometheus, beckoning us to delve into the secrets of cellular rejuvenation and emerge anew.
I know a number of police officers and firefighters are doing that now because a lot of their job, especially police officers, is sedentary, and then it's go, go, go. Mm-hmm. And they seem to like that. There's a study on intermittent fasting that was done by Sachin Panda's lab out of the Salk on firefighters because their schedules are crazy. And being a night owl and then swing shifts is just terrible, wreaks havoc on your metabolic system. I mean, it's just one of the quickest ways to make yourself ill, but we need shift workers, right? Thank you, shift workers. So the intermittent fasting and these more, let's just call them elimination diets, where it's mainly carnivore, really help those communities stay fitter and more active. There's a guy on Instagram, I don't know his name, but I love his police posts. He shows amazing.
Yeah, I follow him.
And he sometimes puts up this post. I love these ones. I do see how intense that job is, and like, wow. But he'll post like supplements, and it's a steak. He's just all about protein, training, and the job. Yeah. In other aspects of life, he keeps quiet. For good reason, of course, but it's clear that for people that need to be active or who are sitting a ton, that the carnivore diet might be a great thing. And now I'm not talking about the carnivore fruit, meat, honey thing. Again, apologies, Paul. I'm not saying that's bad, but these are people who are mainly just doing meat. Yeah. And they just feel like their appetite is more regular. And cops, you kind of see it's a binary distribution. They're either really fit or they're really unfit.
Yeah.
And listen, it's got to be an incredibly hard job. Firefighters, the fitness part, it seems a little bit more aligned to like working out at the station and things like that.
But if I get up and I do put a little salt in my water, because sometimes the appetite can be, sometimes you think you're hungry, but if you put some salt and lemon juice in water, you drink that, then you notice, I'm not hungry anymore. And you were probably sodium deficient. Okay. A lot of people who do low carb diets are sodium deficient. So I sort of fast until about noon, then I eat a low carb meal. I make sure it's not a huge meal, but I go by appetite. Sometimes that's 2 hamburger patties and some, maybe I'll eat a cucumber, or sometimes I'll have a bowl of oatmeal, but rarely, right? I'm not super strict about that. If I've trained, I will include carbohydrates and some fruit with that meal too. And then in the afternoon, I tend to just hydrate. I might have some almonds, Athletic Greens, maybe. Sometimes I'll have some whey protein or something of that sort. And then for dinner, for years now, I've really emphasized starches. I'll have pasta, salad, sometimes a little bit of fish, like tuna fish or salmon, but mostly carbohydrates. And then I sleep like a baby. And I go to sleep sometime around 10:30, 11, and I sleep great. And when I've cut the carbohydrates out, 2 things happen. One, I wake up and if I feel like I can train, my endurance, even within weight training, is not that strong. And then I'm hungrier much earlier. The other is if I eat too much meat close to bedtime, I don't sleep that well. And probably because the gastric clearance time is too long. I do try and take a walk before or after dinner. Today I did it before. So there are evenings where eating these, a bowl of pasta or a bunch of rice and salad, and I think to myself, just because the mindset is, oh, I need protein. And sometimes I'll have some, but I'm eating sometimes a ribeye for lunch.
In this age of discovery and rejuvenation, Andrew Huberman stands as a guide, offering the promise of a world where age bows to the triumph of science, urging us all to embrace the promise of a youthful tomorrow.
We have to think about where your body and brain thinks it is, and then adjust the timing of light. And it's very easy to do, and you can even use a little light box, or you can just get outside at the appropriate times. And you'll want to throw on sunglasses every once in a while during the daytime to avoid getting shifted in the wrong direction.
Okay.
So I can teach you how to do that. It's very easy. But I think most people, I would say about 75% or more people who have sleep issues find that getting this morning sunlight in their eyes, again, not through a window or windshield. People are like, can I do it through a window? Can I just look at the sun on an Instagram post? It's like, no, you actually have to go outside. Okay. It's like a free resource, but just do it. It's pleasant. Bring your kids with you or whatever. Getting that sunlight in your eyes, then try and catch the sun before it sets in the evening, or even just get outside for a few seconds.